Record to the cloud. Hi, I am Andrea Goeglein, and I'm going to start off pretty darn fast today because with me is a woman who I only had the opportunity to meet in the last few minutes before we got on this Zoom. But she has been in my life almost on a daily basis since November 5th, 2024.
Wow.
Melanie Moreland, I am glad that you have your name there because Melanie, before you introduce yourself, everyone, this is going to be a very different type of Zoom today. That much I can tell you. You know that I am a person who used to have a TV show called Books That Matter, but those were always in the field of the science of positive psychology. Today, we're not talking about positive psychology. I can stretch it to that if you want, but no.
Absolutely.
um, and it's very important that you copy down Melanie Moreland's name because then just put .com. And if you go to her site while you're watching this video, you will get exactly why I fell in love with her and her work. So, Melanie, welcome. And please tell us what you'd like us to know about you.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me. I'm quite excited to be here. I'm Canadian. I'm an
Yes.
author. Um,
Yes.
I have written, I believe, 56 books to date.
Wow. I was trying to figure out exactly how many.
Sometimes I lose count.
Okay.
Um, my goal when I started was to do 25 books in my career. And then once
Wow.
I blew past that during COVID, when
Yes.
you couldn't leave your house, I had a
Right.
lot of books in me. Um, so it just keeps going. So I'm Canadian. I've been married for 36 years.
Okay.
Just celebrated our
Wow.
wedding anniversary last week. Uh,
Perfect.
and I love to write. I've always loved to tell stories. And a
Okay.
friend of mine suggested one day, she said, "Why don't you write a book?" And I said, "I
Okay.
don't know how to write a book." She said, "Just like you're talking to me, just write it." So I did, and I gave it to her as a gift. And she said
Oh
to me,
my
"We should
gosh.
publish this." And I said, "I don't know how to publish a book." So she helped me. I sold, I don't know, 30 copies in 6 months. Like nobody knew who I was.
Hmm. Yep.
I knew
Yep.
nothing about marketing, but it
When
was
was this about approximately? How long?
that was 2013.
Wow.
Yes.
Very recent.
Yes.
56 books since 2013. Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Um, and so I wrote the first one and it was fun and I learned a lot. So I wrote a second one and it sold a few more copies. And I worked full time this whole time. It wasn't my goal to do this full time. I loved
Ah,
it, but I didn't picture ever being at the point to be a full-time author.
right.
And then I wrote a third book and it got a little more attention. And
Okay.
my goal was that I made enough every year that my husband and I could go on a little vacation and I would be good with that. And
You
then
are warming my heart.
I wrote the book, The Contract. And
Okay. So that's the one.
yes, Richard Van Ryan changed my life. My
Ah,
my
he changed my life too, but we'll talk about that in a minute.
I wasn't even going to publish it. It was just an exercise. I'm Canadian and we don't express anger very well. And I was really angry over something. So I wrote a character that said exactly what he thought and didn't care. And once that anger was gone, I'm like, okay, I'm good. So I gave it to my editor and I said, this was just a little exercise. You can read it if you like. And she called me a couple of days later and she's like, why aren't you publishing this? And I said, well, nobody wants to read about an asshole. She's like, oh my God, women love assholes, especially if you redeem them. She says, so keep writing it. So I wrote it, put it out there, and I expected it to go like every other book. And the numbers just kept
I
climbing and
know.
climbing. And I jokingly said to my boss, who was going away on vacation, when you come back, I'll have to quit because I'm going to hit all the lists and I won't have time to work. And he's like, okay. And I'm like, haha. So he came back 3 weeks later and I had to give him my notice. And he's like, I thought you were joking. I said, Mark, I thought I was joking, but I've hit USA Today, I've hit New York Times. A little while later, I hit Wall Street Journal. I said, if I'm ever going to give this the shot it needs, it has to be now. And it was really scary to give up my full-time job and a constant salary and devote
Right.
myself just to books. But I have never looked back. And it's
Oh,
something,
and I am glad that you did. Now I'm going to tell everyone the genre and the secret about your books and how they came into my life. So, um, do we call them steamy romance novels? What
yeah,
genre do you actually fit
I
into?
call them contemporary romance with a
Okay,
twist.
contemporary romance with a whole lot of very detailed sexual scenes in
A
them.
good
Is that the
steam.
contemporary part?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, so now I will tell you how you came into my world. And it truly did happen the day after the election in the United
Okay.
States. I was a person who was very devoted to our election, and I didn't get the outcome that I wanted. And I listen to a lot of material on a daily basis. Most of the time, my books are in the genre of spirituality, positive psychology, the science of how the mind works, manifestations, James Doty's work. I listen to a lot of material that is about how do I become better? How do I understand how the heart and the mind and the spirit all work, kind of thing. Fine. I was not up to any of that, nor was I up to all of the political commentary and where the world was going, which I also listened to because I probably get to spend a minimum of 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours a day, because I walk and because I do a lot of things where I don't have to be thinking I'll be driving to a meeting. And I always select what I would listen to. So I got onto Audible the day after the election in the United States, and I was like, I need to listen to like novels, and I'm not a novel girl.
Right.
And I just put in the search free romance novels, and s- books started coming up. I know The Contract was one of the first books I listened to. And within pretty quick order over the course of the next few months, as the shenanigans between the US and Canada took full, I realized by this time that your books had a continuing theme. Like one of the many reasons I loved your books was I have the four main cities in Canada that I've been to relatively frequently, Quebec, Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver.
Okay.
And so you're telling stories and I'm remembering those places.
Right.
And then because you were Canadian, I actually went back to Audible and sought out because now I was going to pay for your books because I was so mad what the silly United States was doing to Canada that it was like, I'm going to buy things Canadian. Like, this is the way to do it. And that's how you came into my life. Now, admittedly, I also got hooked on the love stories. And I got hooked on the graphic scenes, all of which were very much out of my genre. And I started envisioning, because I have a book series in my world of self-help. And I was thinking to myself, how do you write those scenes? Like, okay, Melanie, where do you get all this knowledge from?
I have a really good imagination.
I love it.
Um, the sex scenes are the hardest to write. You
Really?
have to be in the right frame. Quite often when I'm writing a book, there's a
Uh-huh.
little parentheses that says insert sex scene here. Because
Got
if
it.
you're not in the right state of mind, it'll come across.
I love knowing that. That's
Yes. I
fabulous.
need, I'm a very emotional writer. I write with a lot of
Okay.
emotions. My characters are emotionally driven. Um, I don't, I certainly don't write about the real world because the real world is what we're trying to escape from. So there has to
You
be,
succeeded.
yes, nobody can live up to the heroes in my books. Nobody can live up to the heroines. No one's that perfect.
There are no bodies that can have sex that frequently without
No,
taking showers more
yes,
often.
absolutely not. But they exist in the books that I write.
Exactly.
And that's what we're escaping to. You don't want to read about them doing the dishes. You don't want to read about them
Oh,
50 years from now arguing
no,
over something.
nope.
You want that fresh passion of love when it hits you and it
And
paces your entire world.
I will tell you that what I told one of my dear friends is that you've mastered the art of the first 6 weeks of romance
Absolutely.
and you make it a whole
Hot
story.
when it's so intense that you can't breathe without it. That's I love that part of love.
Yes.
Now, I no, I'm not going to brag. My husband and I have probably the strangest relationship of a lot of marriages because I still look at him and get the chills sometimes because I
Oh,
just
I
love him.
love that.
And he's part of every male character
Oh,
in my books.
I,
A lot of the things that happen where the male looks after the female, that's something my husband's done for me. There is one book where she wears a pair of shoes that are too tight because they match the outfit and she wants to look good for him and they cause blisters. And when he sees the blisters on her feet, he takes her shoes and he pitches them into a garbage can and he picks
uh-huh.
her up and carries her to the car. Now, aside from the carrying her to the car, my husband did that. I went to a film premiere with him and we went to the art gallery after and he said to me, "Why are you walking like this?" And I said to him, "My feet are killing me." And he sat me down and he looked at my feet and he threw my shoes in the garbage can and took his shoes off and put his socks on my feet and called the car to come to the front of the gallery to get us
I
because he didn't
love
want me
it.
walking anymore. So I put that into a book. So I'm very lucky that he still does these wonderful things that my
And I
heroine.
want you to know that part of I've been married 45 years and with my husband 50 years, and he's actually 21 years older than me. So your book, Sandy, after I had,
Right?
listened to all of the other ones, I got to Sandy. I again called a girlfriend and said, "Oh my God, she is nailing this scenario." It was really so interesting to me. And what I have appreciated about your books is that I was remembering different parts because he's a man of great character. And I was remembering him as a younger person having those characteristics
Yeah.
and
It's
exhibiting them. So that's why,
I
and
put a
that's
lot
where,
of
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I put a lot of myself into my books
Yep,
and I love to observe people. I love being out and listening to conversations and watching couples or hearing something and thinking, "Oh my God, that would be fabulous in a book."
right.
Uh, there's just so many ways of expressing love and showing love and being love. You can
Yes.
you show your love by the way you uplift people.
Yeah.
So that's just a characteristic I try and put in my heroes and heroines and their families. And I'm a huge found family writer.
Yes.
I come
Yes.
from a very large dysfunctional family, and we have
Uh-huh.
very little to do with each other. But after Matt and I got married, we made our own family with friends and
Sure.
you know, I'd look around the Christmas table and there'd be myself and Matthew and my sister, and the rest were all friends that became our family. And I believe
Yes.
family can be something other than blood. And that's
Exactly.
huge in my books. If
Yes.
people can love you who aren't your family, but become your family.
And that was another part of the characteristics. One, because I walk and listen, the ability for the stories to build on top of each other and for the characters in one book. And I quickly started to get when you would introduce a character in one book, I could automatically tell there was going to be a story just by the way you drop that person in.
Yes,
And sometimes it had to be, in the character of Reed, where he didn't have a good upbringing. And all of a sudden, he was with each one of the other little puppies who had
yes,
found each other and become a family. And, and I have a real deep appreciation for that because I lived all of my married life 3,000 miles away from my family of origin. And
Right.
although I would see them, my holidays had far more whoever was where I was living
Yeah. Yeah.
versus who had my DNA.
Right. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. They
And
become part of you, part of your
yes.
life, just as important as your family, in some cases, even more.
Yeah.
I,
Now,
I
I want to make sure that everyone knows that on your website, which is melaniemoreland.com, you can actually go to, in addition to how beautifully you line up about the books and the different stories, the groups of books of stories. I love your organizational chart
oh
because
yes,
it looks like a family tree.
yes.
And you have shown that interconnection of the characters and the stories by that. And I find all of that to be what makes your book so great for me to keep listening to.
Well, when I started writing the vested interest series with Bentley, it was only going to
Right.
be one book.
Uh-huh.
And then my PA said to
Oh,
me, "When does Aiden get a book?" And I said, "Oh, well, I hadn't thought about that." So then you start thinking differently about a story.
yep.
And I thought if there's Aiden, maybe there's a third character. So then
Okay.
Bam was created, and it was just going to be 3 books. But then when Reed showed up in the first book, and it was just a small little glimpse, but then
Yep.
Aiden brought him in. I don't write the stories, the characters do. So Aiden brought him into the second book, and suddenly I started seeing him. They start living in my head. I started
Yes.
seeing him and hearing his really sad story. And
Yeah.
then in Maddox's book, when he met Richard, my
Yeah.
agent had said to me, "Could you bring Richard into the Vested series just for a quick moment?" I was
Yep.
like, "I could do that," but then he took over the series.
Right.
But Richard does do that. And
He
then he did
does.
the ABC series as well. So once that started happening, I said to my PA, "We need to sort of track where these characters are showing up because I don't know which order people should read
Yes.
books." So luckily I had a great little hype team, and they worked on the little flow chart. Okay, so you should read
Mm-hmm.
this book, but then
Yep.
jump here and then jump here and then read this book, this book. So I can't take credit for that at all. It's
Well,
this
and I
lovely
I am
group of women.
already about 10 into your books, and that then I found those things on your site. So that's why I want everyone to know that part first. That
Yes.
I because now I am going to go back and be more methodical. Like there is one that Audible doesn't have that is a print only. I guess the BAM prequel
Yes.
is
They
only a
they'll
book,
only do books that are X so long.
pages.
It's just a
Right.
novella.
Okay.
But we're talking about, I've just started producing my own audios. So the
Oh,
last, I don't know, the last dozen books we've done, I've produced them. Not, they still are
oh,
out through Audible, but I own the rights to them, everything.
great.
We're thinking of, once Bentley runs out with Audible, pulling it back and redoing it and adding the BAM prequel in there. So
Oh,
when
great.
that happens, not sure, but
And see, and as both a writer and a business person, this is what I wanted part of our conversation to be the process. You told us how, and I want you to know, I can't live a moment practically without positive psychology and my day job coming in. The conversation. I've written more than one article on the different, do you choose a paycheck or passion? And I am a person who believes that you can do both, that if your passion is so strong that you can keep doing your day job long enough to see whether or not this also has economic viability. Because you could continue to do it and it not have economic
yeah,
viability. And that's
absolutely.
perfectly okay, but you would at least know. So you gave us that part of the story. You told us how a friend, you were a storyteller and how that led to the natural progression. But you have a way, as many, the Danielle Steels of the world and the James, was his name Brown? I mean, I remembered my mom reading very specific authors and whole groups.
Yes.
And there is a way that you actually go through creating? Like, how much of your day do you write?
Well, my husband just retired last year, so I don't write as much.
Okay.
But I write probably 3 to 4 hours a day. But some days
Wow.
I write 8 hours a day. The
Okay.
last book I just wrote the last book in the favorite series.
Okay.
And it's the longest one of the series, and I wrote it in 4 weeks because I couldn't stop the words. Once I knew the story in my head, I
Right.
was at the computer for 8 to 9 hours a day, and I was doing 5 and 6,000 words a day. And
Wow.
other days it's 1,500 words, and that's all I can get. So
Right.
now that I'm at this point in my life, at this age, it's not I need to write this many words a
Hmm.
day and get this many books out. Um, I'll still have 4 or 5 books out this year. So
Okay.
I'm not doing badly, but
No.
3 to 4 hours. And now that I'm older, the longer you sit, the more your hips get a little sore,
Sure,
the more
sure.
your shoulders get a little sore. So
Right.
I've learned do a couple hours, get up and throw in some
Right.
laundry, plan dinner. I'm trying
Right.
to find a little bit more balance between the imaginary world and the real world. Um,
That is
but there's
great.
some days Matthew knows he doesn't even come into the office. Around 6 o'clock, there'll be a little tap, and he'll be like, I brought home a pizza, or, I
Yes.
made sandwiches, or do you want to
Yep.
come eat? And I'll be like, oh my God, it's 6 o'clock. And he's like, yeah.
Hmm.
He says, you were so deep, you didn't even see me.
Correct.
Um, it just depends on the book, how the words flow.
Okay.
Um, if I've written 3 sex scenes that day, I'm exhausted.
Me too.
And Matthew, quite often, he's a huge sports fan. So there's
Okay.
always sports on the computer, on the TV. So some days I just want to be close. So I take my little table and I sit in my chair in the living room and I put my
Right.
headphones on because I need absolute quiet to read or to
Quiet.
write. I can't listen
Okay.
to music. I can't have the TV going, but I want to be close to him. So I put
Sure.
the headphones on and I write well, he's there and he says, I always know when you're writing a sex scene. He says, your toes do this. He says, your knees bounce. He says, your hands are like this as you're trying to describe something. And then you're like, and he's
Oh,
right.
I love
I'm
it.
trying to figure out in my head, if his hand's there and this is here and this
Uh-huh.
is over here, or,
Uh-huh.
if
Uh-huh.
the table's this high, what happens? Or
Right.
you never
Uh,
know.
I'm telling you, it is, it's hard uh, to not go back in my head when I'm listening to those things because I'm thinking of all those things like, how do you write this? How do you think about that? Like, where does all of this come from? And all I can tell you though is know that it makes me so happy. These stories make me happy. It has done exactly what I had hoped it would do, and that is get me out of listening to a lot of things I cannot do anything about and stay in this fantasy world of like, these hard bodied boys. My husband and I actually have a joke as we're watching TV because I have observed that men on television now in the TV shows all have to have the bodies that look like the guys on the covers of your books. And I keep thinking, these poor men, my goodness, what does that take to have a body like that? And we laugh about it. And I said, we were like, or the original Pillsbury Doughboy and Doughgirl. We were like, I don't know where that set of muscles comes from or where they're hidden, but they all have them now. And your
Oh, they
book
do.
covers are great in that regard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're one of the
Do you
best
get to
parts
pick the
is looking
models?
through. It depends. I pick the photographer and go
Okay,
through their models if they have it. Some
got
of
it.
some of the covers are stock, but I have a lot of ones that I've paid just for the rights for the picture.
Okay.
It's the boss in my The Men of Hidden Justice. I was
Mm-hmm.
scrolling late one night, I couldn't sleep, and Wander had just posted that picture of Andrew. And I looked
Okay.
at it and I went, that's Mateo.
Mm.
And I think it was 3 in the morning here. So LA was about midnight. And I
Right.
wrote his assistant right away and said, please tell me this image is not taken. He's like, well, I just put it up, Melanie, like 5 minutes ago. I'm like, it's sold. Just
That's
send me
right.
the invoice right now. He's like, I'll mark it sold. I'll send you the invoice in the morning. You're okay.
That's great.
And at 6 in the morning, I'm on the phone with my PA. I'm like, wait till you see the cover for Mateo. And I sent it to her. She's like, where did you find that? I said, just scrolling. And then he did 3 or 4 for that series for me. And Eric Battershell does a lot of my photos. Um,
Okay.
they have to speak to me.
Yes.
And the expression on Andrew's face on that cover was this tormented, sad, yet exceedingly sexy look.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
And it was
I
just
haven't.
perfect.
So which one? That's the boss series, the
Yes,
contract
hidden.
series.
I think I
Wait.
have
Yeah. Um,
this one.
okay. Oh, yes.
It
Oh,
was
yes.
just perfect. Exactly what was in my head for Mateo.
Right.
Um,
That's great.
and so when that happens, it's just magic. Once
Yep.
you have your cover, the characters just open up, come to life.
Yep.
Um, and when I do my favorite series, which is all hand drawn, I work very closely with the artist and describe my
Now, is that your
character.
most recent set of work? Because your covers are different on your most recent set of
Yes,
work.
because I sold that to Waterhouse Press, that series. And
Okay.
those kind of covers, they're big, but I still wanted them cute and sexy, and I didn't want stick figures. So
Okay.
again, my lovely assistant, who I would be lost without, found this lady and said to me, do you like this work? And I said, very much. So we contacted her just to do a couple pictures. And she ended
Right.
up creating the covers and the artwork and the inserts that we do for the books. And she's done all three so that it's very cohesive. In fact, I just saw the cover for the next book that comes out in September, and she nailed that one too.
Ah,
Um, so I want them cute, but still
yep.
sexy. Um, and when you're in a bookstore, they won't take covers with a lot of man chests. So you have to
Oh,
cater to bookstores if you want your books in the bookstore.
oh, yes. I'm seeing the difference. Okay.
Yes.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
and when Waterhouse Press took over the contract series, they changed all three covers and people love them. So
Uh-huh.
I love the original, but I love the new ones. You just
Okay.
sort of have to move with the times.
Got it.
As a business person, things change and you either
Exactly.
have to die with the old or move on with the new. So I don't love all the new covers, but I love my new covers. So that's all that,
Great.
yeah.
Now, tell me, you've out of 56 books, do you have a true favorite to this point?
Yeah. Um, I have two.
Okay.
One is the contract because
Okay.
Richard totally changed my life.
Right.
Um, and he lives rent free in my head all the time.
You can live rent
Um,
free in my head too. It's okay with me.
and my other favorite is the book called Over the Fence. And it's about two neighbors who live with a very high fence between them. And they fall in love with each other without ever seeing each other. So they fell in love with the
Wow.
person and not the
Okay.
package that they're in.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Okay. I
a
like that.
lot of,
I'll make a
yeah,
point of listening to that.
a lot of that story is my own personal story. Growing up, struggling
Oh,
with family members who weren't nice and feeling isolated and finding someone who loved me just for
for
me.
you. Yeah.
And in the story, Nate falls in love with Courtney just because of the lovely person she is. And when he meets her, he just thinks she's beautiful. He doesn't care that she's a little
Isn't it?
overweight or that she's a little shy,
Yeah.
just his Courtney. And the whole idea came out because I was in my backyard barbecuing. My neighbor was on the other side of the fence and I didn't even know it. And she said, wow, that smells really good. Can I come for dinner? And it kind of went, oh. And then I started thinking, what if that was a male who doesn't cook
Yes.
and his
Yes.
new neighbor's cooking dinner
Mm-hmm.
and he kind of teases her and she feeds him and then they
Oh,
start a relationship where they never see each other, but they talk every single day, and you fall in love with the person, not
right.
the envelope. So that's sort of my favorite, personal favorite,
Uh,
just
and
because
I
so
will.
much of me in it.
That's going to be next on my list then, because right now I'm out of books. It's been a busy few weeks,
Ah,
and so I haven't been. And I've had my grandchild around. You know, it wasn't quite appropriate to have your books on. I did not want
no,
them popping up
probably
in
not.
between. No, 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 no. Melanie, I honestly, this has been an absolute delight
Thank you.
because you
It's been
have
great.
brought me your work, your passion for what you have created m- has brought me a little piece of sunshine in a very cloudy set of
Oh dear.
scenery. If I let it, envelop me in any way. And you have done exactly your book series and the fact that there is so much work. I mean, you may actually get me through this administration.
There you go. That's saying something.
It is. You may have to do a favor for some of us and just keep writing a bit more.
Today's
And I know
election
it's
day in
election
Canada.
day in
Yep.
Canada, yes.
Yes.
Um, and is it looking like Mark Carney is going to?
I hope so. Um,
Yeah,
I haven't seen any of
it's
the
sounded
results. We
like it
don't
got
really see it
squeaky
until
in the
later.
last 48 hours. Yeah,
Yes. We'll see what happens. We were out this morning. We went and voted first thing. Oh, there's the
right.
kitty.
Of course.
And
I'm
there
trying
was,
to.
we live in a retirement area, and they had a
Yep.
voting station here, and it was very
Right.
busy. It was great to see. Um,
Great.
and I guess we'll know tonight who
Yeah.
our prime
And I
minister
guess
is.
if he does win, I will say it is one of the good things that the U.S. administration did for Canada.
Yeah, but we will never be the 51st state.
No, and nor should you. Nor should you. There are, between you and Greenland, I'm exactly not sure why we have to aggravate people, but it seems to be what it seems to be.
It
And
does.
Melanie, thank you so much. I hope you have the most continued success because you really have brought to life the attributes of how you actually build a good, strong business and a livelihood that brings you alive.
I
And,
love the tail that keeps coming.
you know, we understand what it means not to let anything stop us.
Yeah,
And
nope,
in the case of
absolutely.
me, it's just this little cattail. Would you just come and sit over here and get your tail out of the lens? Here you go. There you go. Okay. And thank you. I
You're
will make
welcome.
sure that your website and how, every way that people can get in touch with you, but mostly your website will give everyone the roadmap. Audible is where I get your books, both free and purchase. And I have actually made a point of purchasing more of them than not
Thank you.
of recent vintage. And I just wish you continued success and thank you ever so much for taking the time to be with me today.
You're more than welcome. Thank you for inviting me. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you. And let's stay in touch. You be
Yes,
well.
absolutely. Take
Okay.
care.
There. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. And I have turned that.